My name is Kristina Vojtilová and I am a member of the Fintech team at the law firm Hronček and Partners. Thank you for joining today's webinar, and I hope that you find it beneficial and practical. I will focus on the fintech entities entering the EU market, and also of the process of obtaining license itself. We will also focus on some mistakes that applicants tend to repeat, and we will also go over some recommendations how to avoid these mistakes. We will also go over some specific of the Slovak Republic as the gateway to the European Union internal market. So let me begin with the first topic, which is the advantages of the license process in Slovakia. The first advantage is small market, less competition, and also the passporting system. Once a company obtains a license in Slovakia, it may, after fulfilling some notification obligations, provide its services in any European Union member state based on the freedom to provide services, which is one of the fundamental rights of the European Union internal market. The second advantage is the low costs. The process of obtaining a CASP license is significantly less expensive compared with larger economies such as Germany. And the third advantage is the regulatory approach, because the NBS takes a professional and interactive approach towards applicants. And also, if the applicants don't speak Slovak, they can speak and communicate with NBS in English. Another feature that is unique among European Union member states, and it's a valuable advantage, is the opportunity of the pre-license dialogue, which is an informal discussion directly with the regulator. And during this discussion, applicant obtain a valuable feedback directly from the regulator, which basically means that you can then adjust your application to be comply with the regulatory's expectations. Another important topic is the licensing process itself. So when the company reaches the stage where it has decided to apply for a CASP license in Slovakia under the regulation MiCA, it should firstly clarify the answers to several basic questions. The first is the company's registered office, so where the company will conduct its business. In this regard, it's essential to know that the registered office cannot be viewed mere as a virtual or fictitious formality to meet the requirements, as the applicants must demonstrate to the NBS that the company is effectively managed and operates from within the territory of the Slovak Republic. In this context, we would like to draw attention to a practical problem we encounter in our practice, namely so-called ready-made CASP companies. These are pre-established companies with historically registered scope of business in the field of virtual assets, which are subsequently offered as allegedly ready to obtain a CASP license. However, this approach is misleading because the licensing process is always tied up to the specific of each applicant. And these elements are business model, governance structure, ICT resilience, and also some internal setups. And this basically cannot be pre-prepared in a one-size-fits-all manner. And the issue of the registered office is also problematic, as in practice these are merely virtual, that do not meet the regulator's expectations for a company's actual operational infrastructure. At the same time, it's important to emphasize that the supervision does not end with granting a license. On the other hand, the continuous supervision by the NBS begins, including possible on-site inspections, which requires a real and functional premises. Therefore, we recommend approaching the establishment of a CASP entity on a case-by-case approach and setting it up from the outset in accordance with the regulatory requirements, ideally with expert legal support to avoid problem in the licensing process. Another key decision that company must make before even beginning to prepare the application itself is correctly defined services, because one of the most common mistakes that applicants tend to repeat is incorrectly defining their crypto asset services, and this can result in the application being deemed as incomplete or even rejected. An equally important step is to define your organizational structure and thus know in advance who will be the person responsible for the management in the company, and also who will be the key persons in the mandatory positions. Another essential task is setting up the IT infrastructure and also the AML infrastructure. This is one specific aspect when it comes to the AML, because AML for CASP is not only because CASPs are not only regulated under regulation with AML, but they are also regulated under directive, and the directives are implemented in each EU member state in their own national law. So that means that they tend to differ among the EU countries. And this is also the reality that the AML is a little bit another in each EU country. So the company should therefore designate also the person who will be responsible for AML, and this person should have relevant knowledges according to AML legislative in Slovakia and also with the EU legislative for the AML. After evaluating all the above information and establishing the company may decide to participate in the pre-license dialogue that I mentioned before. The purpose of the pre-license dialogue is to present the company's business model, also its personnel and its understanding of the legislative requirements arising from the MiCA and from the relevant Slovak legislation. During the pre-license dialogue, the company can obtain valuable feedback directly from the representatives from NBS, based on which it can subsequently adjust its internal processes to avoid any potential deficiencies in the application. This is followed by the phase of drafting internal policies and all application attachments. This is a complex and a regulatory intensive process for which we recommend collaborating with law firms specializing in Fintech field. And in addition to policies, the company is required to meet also the requirements under the DORA regulation, such as penetration testing, as well as comply with the prudential safeguards, since both of these requirements must be demonstrated prior to submitting an application. The final stage is the actual submission of the application along with all its attachments. Subsequently, the NBS will assess the application in the formal and also in a substantive way. During this assessment, it may, and in practice this is a standard procedure, request that certain information needs to be corrected. The application is then supplemented, and the supplements are submitted to the NBS, which subsequently evaluates whether the application is complete, and if so, they decide if grant or deny the license to provide crypto asset services. At this stage, we'll move on to the third section, which covers our clients' most frequently asked questions. So one of the most common, this was already, one of the most common questions from our clients is whether it is still possible to provide services under the VASP license, and the answer is no. It is important to emphasize that VASP was never licensed in a true meaning of the word, because the VASP was only a registration of a business activity without any extensive requirements that MiCA now mandates, and the MiCA transitional period in Slovakia ended on 1st January 2026, and from this date forward, crypto asset services may be provided within the EU exclusively by the entities which are holding the relevant license under MiCA regulation. Another question is how long the licensing process takes, and the duration of the licensing process is always case specific. Based on a practical experience, the entire process from submitting an application to obtaining a license could be expected to take approximately 8 months. However, it may be shorter, but it may be also significantly longer. The duration of the process is influenced by the preparedness of the applicant, also by the quality of the documentation, and also on the scope of the crypto asset services that the company will provide. Another question is what are the requirements for the management body, and which positions are mandatory in the company. So the first answer is that the management body consists of the company's statutory representative, and that means that it's created from the managing directors of the company, which are responsible for the management of the company. The member of the management body of the company needs to have a good repute, also some professional knowledge, praxis, and experiences, and also have sufficient time to devote to his role in the CASP. Regarding the key persons, which are the mandatory position, it's necessary to have a person who will be responsible for the internal control, also known as a compliance officer. Then the position which is called AML officer, and this is basically the person who is responsible for the anti-money laundering in the company, and then the person who will be responsible for the IT resilience in the company. Many companies attempt to simplify the organizational requirements with combining some positions. However, this is not always an appropriate approach, as some combinations are incompatible, such as a compliance officer with a managing director. Other positions are generally compatible with combining, but it always depends on the scope of the client and also on the scope of the crypto asset services. We perceive the most shortcoming precisely in the fact that crypto asset service providers often underestimate is the importance of the establishing of a company and prefer to purchase a company with a virtual registered office, as well as the insufficient organizational preparedness, insufficient coordination in developing policies, which must be tailored to each CASP, and last but not least, the problematic verification of UBO as proving the origin of the financial resources and the company's ownership structure is an integral part of the licensing process. I hope we have managed to answer some of your questions regarding the CASP license. And now I would like to move on the topic of so-called dual license. With the introduction of MiCA regulation, CASP projects in the EU are often mistakenly considered to be regulated exclusively under MiCA. However, in practice, some business models also fall under PSD2 regime. PSD2 is particularly relevant in the cases where, in addition to crypto asset services, a project also involves fiat flows, payment transactions, or EMTs transfers. A typical example could be platform or wallet that allow users to deposit fiat funds or make payments between users, or use EMT tokens for peer-to-peer payments. Conversely, PSD2 generally doesn't apply in situation involving only exchange of crypto assets for fiat or crypto to crypto without facilitating a payment between the payer and the payee. In some cases, it may not be necessary to obtain a separate license under PSD2, as the project can be structured also through a partner with an existing license. But it's also important to note that this partner must have also a CASP license. If PSD2 applies, it introduces additional regulatory requirements, including some capital requirements, also government requirements, and also AML and IT requirements. A common mistake made by the applicants is assuming that MiCA is for their business model sufficient, while the PSD2 aspect only becomes apparent during the licensing process. This subsequently leads to delay, the need to supplement the documentation, or even the need of a fundamental revision of the business model. So from a practical standpoint, it's therefore crucial to assess PSD2 early in the project, particularly for models involving, for example, custody, payment flows, or EMT transfers. And overall, early and integrated analysis of MiCA and PSD2 is essential for preventing unnecessary delays, increased costs, and complications in the licensing process. Let me move on the final section of my part, which deals with the DLT pilot regime. The DLT pilot regime under the regulation DLT pilot allows for testing of blockchain-based trading and settlement infrastructures for tokenized financial instruments with temporary exemptions from a MiFID, MiFIR, and CSDR. In practice, however, this is currently operating only a few entities in a limited extent, and the reason is that the low level of the attractivity of the DLT pilot is the low thresholds and the temporary nature of the license, because it was stated only for 6 years, and also the range of the permitted instruments and improving integration with traditional markets. Another significant, but ESMA is therefore proposing a revision of the DLT pilot regulation under the new European Union package for capital markets. And there is a reform aimed at making the regime more attractive by making it permanent, also raising and making the thresholds more flexible, expanding the range of permitted instruments, and improving integration with traditional markets. And another significant shift is the planned opening of the regime for CASP entities, which would have some simplified regime under the new version of DLT pilot. And DLT pilots are considered futuristic because they are enable smart contracts, also some atomic settlements, asset tokenization, programmable compliance, and near-instant transaction settlement. At the same time, they enable asset fractionalization and direct investor access to market without traditional intermediaries, thereby fundamentally changing the structure of the capital markets. An example of functioning model is the CDCP Prague, which is the first DLT system in the EU, and it runs on the R3 Corda enterprise platform in parallel with the traditional infrastructure, and enables both the issuance and also the settlement of the DLT instruments. CDCP users communicate via a dedicated web or through a mobile portal. The DLT register with functionalities that are typically unavailable in traditional CDC environments like real-time positions, transactions, and try directly through the app, on-demand statements, and management of the property rights. So there is no paper application and also no waiting for the intermediaries. Overall, the DLT represents a shift toward faster, automated, and transparent capital markets. However, its wider adoption will depend also on the removal of current regulatory and infrastructure limitations. With that, I would like to conclude my section for today, and I introduce our next speaker, who is Ms. Jana Hmírova. She is the CEO of the payment institution Payout, and she will focus in her presentation on some practical experience from the perspective of a regulated entity in the EU.
Hello, today I will be representing the company Payout. First of all, I will try to share my presentation. Give me a second. Today I will represent the company Payout, and of course, first of all, I wanted to tell you that I'm really pleased to be here, and I hope you find this presentation, or so-called our story, inspiring and interesting. So I would like to start from our philosophy of Payout. It is really simple. We believe that businesses should be able to move money like data. It means fast, seamless, and programmable. But the reality of payments in Central Europe was not quite there yet. Today I'm here to tell you a story about how a small Slovak team decided to build a financial Ferrari, so-called Ferrari, from scratch, and what it actually looks like when 7 regulators from the National Bank march into your office to check every single bolt. This is a story of how we turned fixing plumbing into a European payment institution. I would like to tell you that Payout, you have to look at it like what happened before we even existed. In 2016, our founders Jana Hmírova and Petr Stažovec were running a consultancy called Straight. We weren't in Fintech yet. We were plumbers of the payment world. We were fixing the leaks for e-commerce, automotive, and travel companies. And after 2 years, we noticed a painful pattern. Our clients were struggling with a fragmented mess. One provider for cars, another for bank transfers, a third for KYC, a fourth for fraud. Think of it like this. Imagine you bought a car, but the engine came from one company, the brakes from another, and the keys from a third. None of them spoke to each other. That was the state of payment in Central Europe. So Jana and Petr looked at that and said, someone needs to build the actual car. Here is the part that truly defines our culture. Between 2016 and 2018, Straight generated 1.7 million euros in consulting revenue. Instead of taking that profit, the founders reinvested every cent directly into Payout. We didn't rely on venture capital or flashy investor pitches. We built our foundation with money we earned ourselves by solving the very problems we are now tackling at scale. This tells you everything you need to know about how we make decisions. We are built on real-world results, not just promises. Let's move on to the hardest part for Payout, gaining the license. In 2017, we made the all-in move. We decided to become a fully regulated payment institution under the National Bank of Slovakia. We had a choice. First, a PIA license, moving money, or an IMI insuring e-money. The capital gap was huge, 125,000 versus 350,000 euros. We chose the first road. It was a smart move to keep our liquidity for the product while keeping the EMI option for the future. And we applied on February 27 in 2018 What followed wasn't just a checkup, it was full type approval. The regulators basically X-rayed every valve in our system. Over the next year, we went through 3 calls for amendment. It was a game of high stakes ping pong. In May 2018, they asked for board changes. We fixed it in 5 days. Then, from June to November, they wanted evidence on everything from security to operations. We actually removed our request for open banking my process. You ask why? Because in 2018, PIS and AIS were still massive, untried, unknown across Europe, for everyone. So we decided not to let the unproven perfect blow the urgent foundation, and we needed to core license first, so we made the mutual call to wait. And on February 12, in 2019, 7 people from the National Bank, including IT specialists, economists, methodologists, walked into our office for an on-site audit. They thought our 66-page AML program, our penetration tests, and even our 19% team's background. And the reality. You apply, you wait, and then come the first reply from the National Bank. Of course, we received a 35-page document packed with dozens of requirements and questions. That was our real welcome to the regulated world moment. It was a massive way of work, of course, but we still tried. And the result, instead we spent 12 months in a relentless documentation and auditing sprint until February 21, 2019, we got the call. We weren't just a tech company anymore. We were a regulated financial institution. Hopefully, finally. Now let's talk about card processing. Or to be technically exact, becoming a payment facilitator. If you think getting a government license is hard, try convincing the global banking establishment to trust you. In the world of cards, a license from the National Bank is just the entry ticket. To actually move money, you need a partner bank, an acquirer, to open the door for you. When we started, we were a small team from Slovakia operating in high volume, high risk industries. We reached out to 15 different banks and acquirers from Europe. Every single of them said no. To them, we were too small, too unknown, or too risky. Okay, but we spent 19 months in a loop of rejection. For a year and a half, we were constantly refining our pitch, hardening our security, and proving our worth. It took 18 months of relentless grit before we finally got that first yes. The persistence is why we can process cards today. We didn't just find a partner, we outplaced the skepticism of the entire industry. Remember how I mentioned that we voluntarily pulled those advanced open banking features from our first application? Well, once our core license was safe, we went right back to them. On February 28 in 2020, we officially secured our PISP and AISP authorizations. By September that year, Payout was quite literally the only licensed institution for these services in Slovakia. That isn't a marketing claim, it was a regulatory fact. What does that actually mean for a business? AIS, account information. With a customer's consent, we can see and aggregate bank data. PIS, payment initiation. This is the game changer. We can push money directly from a payer's bank account to merchant, bypassing the card network entirely. Think of it like this. A traditional card payment, Visa or MasterCard, is like driving on a toll road. You pay the same fees, interchange fees, and the processor fees. By the same time, the money reaches the merchant a chunk of its scan. BIS is like having your own private tunnel. It's bank to bank, direct, cheaper, faster. It's the difference between filling up at a gas station and plugging an electrical car into your own wall socket. This license is what made our business model truly scalable. In this part, we are talking about crossing borders around the Europe and open for us some new horizons. A Slovak license is a passport to the rest of Europe, but some markets have their own local VIP rules that require extra fees, of course. Let's talk about the Romania, for example. It was one of them, and to help iGaming clients there, we needed a special license from the National Gambling Office. It was in 2018 we climbed a small mountain of paperwork, apostolate documents, criminal record checks, and sworn translations. We got the license, and even though it's currently in tactical dormancy, like keeping a car registered parked in the garage. Those plates are still ours, but we drive when we need to. But Poland was different. Polish Financial Supervision Authority recognized our Slovak passports. We do not need a separate license, but we do need a local resident, Polish-speaking money laundering reporting officer to act as a regulator's first phone call. We have one. Our Polish operations focus on multi-bank account management and PLN satellite deposits. Looking ahead in 2025, as we grow, the rules get tougher. We have moved to PSADSS Level 1 security standard, which requires a mandatory on-site audit because our transactions volume is skyrocketing. Another regulation, another duty, another bureaucracy. Consequently, we obtain our BIC code, the Bank Identification Code, that enables us to provide dedicated IBANs to our clients. We are also a member of SWIFT and are currently applying to the European Payment Council to become a fully fledged member of CEPA Instant. This became available to non-banking institutions in October 2025, marking the first time in history that non-bank entities can participate. This is where the story gets really interesting, the shift from just having a license to using regulation as a strategic weapon. On May 15 in 2020, we took a big leap south. We didn't just move, we opened a second factory by filing for a license with the Malta Financial Service Authority. Why Malta? It gives us three things we simply couldn't get anywhere else. First, gateway. It's an English-speaking bridge to North Africa, the Middle East, and Commonwealth markets. Second, innovation. Access to a high-tier Fintech sandbox and the Malta AI Vision 2030 strategy. And the third, the future of crypto. We are exploring a MiCA-compliant license that would allow us to handle crypto to flows. But the real brain of our Malta operation is ProudNet. This is our AI fraud detection system built with the Campion Institute. It's so advanced it received €1.5 million grant from the European Innovation Council. To get this license, we had to go deep. We built a customer risk assessment model with a 23-question scoring system. If a business doesn't quit, the system knocks them out automatically. Our Maltese banking partners love it so much, so they accepted it as a gold standard for operating our local payments flows in early 2026. This is my favorite part of the story because it shows how payout thinks differently. In April 2025, Slovakia introduced a new financial transaction tax. It was a massive headache for most compliance. 0.4% on every transfer and 0.8 on cash withdrawals. For our high volume clients, this wasn't just a nuance. It was a serious threat to their margins. Most companies just complained. We looked for a solution in the law books. We realized that a specific money remittance authorization exempt those payments flows from the tax. We applied to the National Bank of Slovakia in March in 2025 and spent 4 months in a documentation sprint. The regulator wanted everything. Flow charts of every API call, confirmation of how our cybersec is ready, and DORA compliance. End result? We secured the license on April 25. And here is a takeaway. We didn't just use a license to be compliant, we used a license to neutralize attacks for our clients. That is regulation as a commercial defense. It's the kind to move you can only make when you have a 6-year rock-solid relationship with the regulator. Everything I've described so far, the licenses, the audit, the grid, was the foundation for payout payment infrastructure. In 2025, we have one mission, to connect payouts infrastructure directly into the European Central Bank's real-time clearing system, known as KIPS. In October 2024, European legislation officially changed, finally allowing non-bank payment institutions direct access to CEPA instant payment schemes. Right now, when money moves, it hops through third-party banks and legacy pipes. Each hop has fees and delays. Complete money infrastructure removes the hopes. It collapses our transactions cost radically. It turns us from a participant into actual infrastructure. Imagine you spend 10 years driving on toll roads. Every kilometer costs you money and time. Then, one day, you're given a transponder that opens every gate for free, and the speed limit goes from 130 to unlimited. That is what payout payment infrastructure is all about. We are building this on technology Elixir and Erlang, the same tech used in telecoms because it cannot go down. We are targeting 99% uptime, that's only 5 minutes of downtime per year. And because instant clearing means instant risk, our AI CrowdNet is a gatekeeper screening every single cent in milliseconds. Most fintech try to grow by raising millions of dollars and avoiding the regulator as long as possible. But on the contrary, payout did the opposite. We grew by self-funding through hard work, then walking through the front door of the National Bank and doing it again and again. All these documents, payment institution license, open banking, MasterCard and Visa principles, aren't just papers in frame, they are physical mode. They are a shield made of audits and AML directives that no competitor can simply disrupt overnight. And today, we are processing 1.7 billion euros annually, serving 300 plus clients with a 95% recurring revenue rate, and a Deloitte Fast 40 laureate and an AIS grand winner. When our founders, Jana and Peter, looked at those broken cars back in 2018, they didn't just try to sell a better steering wheel. they decided to build the whole car, get it road legal across Europe, and then build the highway trans on. The most beautiful part of this journey, the regulator was never the enemy, they were the partner. We just took them seriously. That's all, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, for your interesting presentation. And now I give the floor to Mr. Hasin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew Hasin, and I work in cybersecurity in IT infrastructure. For more than years, I help companies build a secure system. Today, I want to talk about DORA and why it matters for Fintech. I'm not a lawyer, I'm a practical guy who is working with cybersecurity. So, what is the DORA? DORA is a European Union regulation. The full name is a Digital Operation Resilience Act. It's become active from January 2025. DORA is not another paper what you need to apply, what you need to create. It's a system what can help with cybersecurity. So DORA applies to many companies, for example, banks, insurance company, payments provider, crypto companies, and so on. Why is important? Because the fintech company depends on IT completely. If systems go down, your business stops. It's really important because if you don't have business, you don't have money. DORA wants to fix exactly this risk. And it is fines are not small. You can pay up to 2% of your yearly turnover. For IT vendors, it can be 1% per day. So it's serious, but it is good news. If you do this well, you build trust. And fintech trust is your biggest assets. The cybersecurity is really, really important in this situation. So there was 4 main pillars. The first pillar is risk management. This means you need to know your risk. You need to know how to protect your system. You know everything about your system, and you need to recover when something goes wrong. So the second pillar is incident management. This means when something bad happens, you must report it, and you must do it on time. The deadlines are strict. So the next pillar is resilience testing. This is a very important part. You must test the systems not once but regularly. Every year you also need deeper testings, with really important test your systems and test your vulnerability in your system if you create some application. The last pillar is third-party ICTs. Very important is know you have many vendors, what have access to your network, what have access to your company, and you need check the cybersecurity for your ICT vendor. For example, if you have a cloud provider or authentication provider, you need know how to test the provider. You need to have a backup plan how to change your provider to another provider. So it's really, really important. Now let's go deeper into the first pillar. What does DORA want from your IT? Okay, so first you need complete list of your IT assets. It's really, really important. Service implication, database, cloud services, everything what you have in the company. If you don't know what you have, you cannot protect them. The second, you need continuous monitoring. Not once at year, but you need monitor everything at the time. Third, you need access control, encryption, and network segmentation. This is a very important thing because if we don't have segmentation and one system is attacked, the attacker can be access to another system. You need to minimize to attacker to go another system. So the next thing is important to have backups, but the backups is not on. You don't need only backups. You need recovery plan. If you don't have a recovery plan, you don't have backups because you can have backups, but you don't know how to restore from backups. So for Fintech especially, three things are very important. You have cloud-native systems and with clear responsibility of who does what. It's really important. API services with special security controls. And real-time payments need to be very fast incident detection. It's very, very important. So now is for testing. This is the favorite topics. There has few levels of testing. The first level is basic level, I see. This is for all companies. This includes vulnerability scanning, network security checks, open source code review. You should do this at the last once a year. The good news, most of this can be automated, so it's not very expensive. You can install through CI/CD pipelines if you develop some systems, you develop some software, and this is the part of security that can be automated. So it's basic security. What do you need? Second level is complicated. It's penetration testing. This is very important, but it's not important only for biggest company, but it's important only to small company that is develop own systems or run some another system. This test is the hacker, is simulator hacker. They try to break your systems, like those real hackers to world. You need to do this every 3 years. It's really important, but for me it's better if you do every years if you develop system. This is much deeper than basic scan. It shows you problem that your automated tools cannot be found. It's really important to know. Let's talk about money. Money is very important in company and about consequences. The bad sides first. If you don't have complete DORA, you can pay up 2% of your turnover. IT providers can pay 1% per day. Senior manager can be personally responsible or CEO, some other roles. You can lose your license, it's really important. And your name can be in public records. It's really important. So this is not only about IT, it's about the whole business. But there is also good sides. Company would do DORA and cybersecurity well, they win. Why? Because the partner and the investor trust them more, because the system breaks less often. And because the Fintech good security is stealth argument. There is not only cost, it can also be opportunities. So now I want to show what I see in real projects and real companies. This is most common mistakes. No formal risk framework. Company do security, but without structure. This is just React for security. And I see many systems have another security levels. It's because the company doesn't have any formal framework, and developers do security only do security but don't do in every services. The second mistake is incomplete assets list. They don't know all their systems, so they cannot protect them. I see in many companies. The companies don't know how many computers, how many servers, where server sits, and they don't know nothing about it. It's bad because the IT doesn't know how to protect them. The second mistake is vendor as forgotten. They test their own system, but not system of their vendors. I see in many companies, third-party vendors have access to my device, and I don't see if have any cybersecurity, if we don't do cybersecurity, if vendor access to my systems. The last mistake is incident plans only on paper. And the plan exists, but nobody ever tested. In Fintech, you see three more typical problems. Only one cloud provider, no plan B. Compliance as checkbox, not real security. Security teams that don't talk to business teams. If you organize your company in this list, don't worry, you are not alone. Most companies start its starting point. So how do we do right? If I have 4 recommendations. The first is government first. You need different roles. Who is responsible for what? The board must be accountable, not only the IT teams. It's really important. The second is smart tooling. You need to automate what you can. Scanning, monitoring, alerts. You need to use the CM or SOC systems for real-time detection. It's really important to know what do, what application do, what the people do in company. You need audit logs. The second is vendor management. Map all your dependencies, include vendors in your test, and always have exit strategy. The last is continuous improvement. Security is not project with end date. Review your risk every year, every quarter. Learn from every incident. From every incident is very important. You need to build culture, not just another checklists, another paper. It's the cybersecurity is important. So where do you start? I recommended 3 phases. First is assessment. Compare your current state with DORA requirements. Make an asset list. Map your vendors. This is a phase it will take 1 or 2 months. Next is strategy. Define your risk framework. Decide how often you will test and build your incident response plan. This takes 1 or 2 months. The implementation is really important phase. You need to deploy monitoring tools. You run first penetration testing. You connect everything to your CM. This is the longest phase. It takes about 6 months. I think this is very, very important because it is a practical implementation to new technology, and you need to have budgets and have people what do with these technologies. The last is continuous operation. Now you keep going. Everything you need penetration testing every 3 years. You need audit ready documentation. You need regular reviews. but you don't have to do everything at once. Start with phase 1 and the rest will follow. It's important. So at finish, there's 3 things to remember. The first, DORA is not just regulation, it's not just paper, it's framework for resilience. The second, Fintech company must call it 3 things, regulation, business, and IT. Third, start with governance and risk. Tools can be seconds. You need to know everything about your systems, then you need search what tools you need to implement to improve your security. What can you do next week? Do quick DORA checklist. Map your critical IT vendors, and if you don't have partners for testing, talk to me. Okay, for my side, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Hassin. You have certainly answered questions that are important for all fintech startups. And now I will give the floor to Mr. Hronček, who will also conclude today's fintech block.
Thank you. I will just share my screen. And I work as a technology and product executive, currently in a fintech company, and I'm part of the Vyvíja innovation agency ecosystem in Slovakia. And during next minutes, I want to give you a practical picture. You already heard what Slovakia actually offers for a fintech company looking to enter the EU market, where the real infrastructure is, and what we're building specifically in Žilina region as an operational base for companies that would like to leverage this opportunity to enter Slovakia as a gateway to the EU market. So you already heard about the regulatory context from Mrs. Vojtilova, and then let me connect that to the business case for the Slovakia specifically. As you heard, 1 license, 27 markets. In addition, the business side, if you look at the business side and the costs and all the other requirements, they are quite plausible compared to the other European states to enter the European fintech market via Slovakia. And what Vyvíja and what we help with is Mrs. Vojtilova was speaking about. So via Slovakian and via Vyvíja network, you can get full 360 support for your process, onboarding and entering Slovakia and European market, fintech market via Slovakia. So you already heard why a letterbox isn't enough, that NBS actually requires real physical address. It requires like real director that is a physical person with proven track record, that it requires real AML officer and all the ICT and cyber security support that your company needs. In addition, it is helping if the National Bank of Slovakia does see connection to local community that supports the substance. In Slovakia, you can go to different places, of course, and there is some different players that are shaping the Slovak fintech ecosystem, which core of it is obviously the National Bank of Slovakia, and there is finance, fintech and insurtech association, Slovakian association that Innovia is cooperating with as well. Then there is the CFI from the Minister of Finance, and then Innovia, of course, with our ICT and Fintech hub in Žilina region, where we built a solid foundation for different like Fintech, deep tech, and technology companies in general. The ecosystem in Slovakia is actively being built. Bratislava dominates but saturates, and companies that arrive now into the Žilina region, they shape it and they get the best pick of the talent. This is important. So in terms of the size of Slovakian like Fintech market, or the Fintech, there is around 160 Fintech companies compared, for example, to Estonia that has 3 times more, and their size is like 1/5 of Slovakian population. So how does it look practically, and why Žilina region? Via us and our partners, we provide you the offices and spaces if the offices and spaces in a new tech hub where your company will sit next to other technical companies, and it's easy to attract the talent. The legal support comes from our partners, Hronček and Partners. You already saw and hear from Mrs. Vojtilova, about the legal background. We help you with the key hires. Either we're able to source it ourselves or connect you with the agencies and the headhunters that have the connections and the network. Next to that, we're part of a wider Žilina region community, wider network of innovation centers in Czech Republic and in Poland, and that extends also to whole CEE and beyond. In addition, we partner with the university and other like local software firms, other local like hardware firms, infrastructure firms. So we're able to support you in terms of providing support for your whole operations that is needed, and of course like having a good partnership with university. You can easily get the most talented interns or like freshly graduated students from the University of Žilina and from its different faculties or nearby universities as well. So let me conclude one more time. If there is the business case to enter the European fintech market via Slovakia, then you should definitely consider going to Žilina region and establishing your branch and your operations here in partnership with us, Innovia. It's easy to contact us, and we're more than happy to start with you with the initial consultation to cover all necessary steps and to prepare a roadmap and a plan for you to enter the fintech market of Europe. Thank you.
Thank you all for participating in today's Fintech blog. I hope it was beneficial for you and helped answer your question regarding the MiCA regulation obligations under DORA the practical experience of payment institution, as well as opportunities to become involved in the fintech community in Slovakia. I would also like to thank all the speakers for their valuable contribution and insightful presentations. And once again, thank you for your participation, and we hope to see you again in such great numbers at one of the future webinars organized by Hronček and Partners.